Everybody, it's Jeremy. Welcome back to Lucid's 2022 Tournament Game 4, where we are playing Nazca. This is gonna be a little different. So, this is not the normal screen that we hover over, because this is not the message screen. And, people who just watched Turn 17 might notice that it looks suspiciously like Turn 17. That's because it is Turn 17, because I don't have Turn 18 or 19, 20, 21, or 22 for that matter. Yeah, so what happened was I actually went on vacation during this time period in the game. I went out of state to a friend's wedding for basically a week and a half, 2 weeks. And I continued to take my turns there, and I was backing up my turn files like I normally do, but I lost those turn files and did not have a backup of a backup, and then could not get the turns afterwards, right? So, unfortunately, 18, 19, 20, 21, and 22 are missing. That's the bad news. So this is Nazca, turn 18 through 22, right? Goodness gracious. Let me write that down, because this is gonna be a thing. That's the bad news. The good news is that not a lot actually happened in those turns in the game that I would have been able to show you individually turn by turn, right? There is a lot of stuff that did happen, and I'm going to talk to you about what happened, and then in turn 23 we're going to see a lot of the results of what happened. But fortunate, like the silver lining here is that not a lot actually happened. So let's talk very briefly about what did happen. And then we'll talk about a lot of, like, miscellaneous stuff, okay? The first thing, and this is very, very easy, is research, right? So, research, we know we are heading up alteration, right? And we do just that, right? We are able to, by turn 22, we are able to finish out alteration 3 and 4, which is going to get us access to a couple of interesting things, namely Iron Skin Moss Body, and then Temper Flesh Body Ethereal, right? So we've got that going on. Cool. Interesting stuff. So, yeah, did I do research, Alteration 3 and Alteration 4, okay? That's pretty big. The other thing that I can tell you about are the battles that happen, because the battles that happen are relatively straightforward. They're all very, very simple fights against my PD that I have no chance of winning. No big deal, okay? With one, we'll talk about some things. So, we get attacked, or battles, right here. So battles, we have 2 battles versus Yis, both of which are losses, right? As Yis continues to jump in and take lands from me. And that is... Actually, that's not true. We only have 1 battle versus Yis. I apologize. Yeah, we only have 1 battle versus Yes. So we get hit in Mammoth Grove by Yes, right? Then we have 2 battles versus Agartha, as Agartha takes Miratrand and comes and sits on my capital, okay? We don't poke out, we don't assist the cap defense or anything like that. We just let it go. It is what it is. And it does basically nothing. Although, I say basically nothing, it actually does hurt Agartha a little bit. I think at a very small amount, like 10 to 15 units or something like that, because they're not rocking a lot at this current point in time. And then the other battle that we actually have this turn is versus Ashdod, actually, because Ashdod comes and kicks Van off of the Mighty Pillars, and then breaks it in one turn, and takes the fort immediately afterwards. Nothing doing, no losses, no big deal. Okay. Whoop, sorry, had my timer go off. So there's that, right? That is going to bring us to a little bit of an interesting section. And that's not battles with us, but that's battles around us. Because on turn 23, you're going to see a couple things that are slightly different. One of the things that you're going to see is you're going to see that I believe Yis attacks in Neranthian. I don't think there's any big conflict, like there's not a big bump, but they do take Neranthian from Agartha, right? So Yis ends up owning this little coastline. No one ends up taking Golm, which is a little strange, but it just sits here for like 4 or 5 turns. And then, very specifically, Ashdod and Van go to war over the Mighty Pillars, right? Or maybe not so much over the Mighty Pillars, but over negotiation and diplomacy around the Mighty Pillars, right? So that is the development. Yis has taken the coastline. Agartha has taken the majority of my southern provinces and sits on my cap. And then Van and Ashdod are at war over diplomacy and the northwestern section of my previous empire. Okay? So we're not, because next turn, right, turn 18, he comes and sits on our cap. We're not able to recruit anything else. We're not really able to do any other things. There is one thing that we do. Oof. Is it? Did I lose my mind? Yeah. So there is one other thing that we do. Forgot to put this on here. As we are kind of prepping for the eventual attack, right? We decide to start summoning wights. So rituals, right? Summon wights, right? And we only do one of them. And the purpose of that, right, the idea is that what we're going to try to do is we're going to try to potentially get 2 summons off, 2 casts off, and get 10 wights and try to throw them in the breach of our castle, right? Because Agartha is not especially strong. Wights are pretty strong. If we can get them and sit them in the cap, that, or in the wall breach, that will give us time to do anything and everything that we can, right? So there's that. But the biggest thing is what's not happening directly in the game. It's what's happening in diplomacy around the game for turns 18 through 22. Probably one of the biggest things is the war of Ashdod versus Vanheim, right? And that is a very important thing for me because it means they're very focused on each other. They've basically said, okay, Agartha's finishing up Nazca, done and done, which is good for us because it means we only need to focus on blooding Agartha's nose, right? So all of the research, all of the deals that we're trying to make, everything that we're trying to accomplish, we can put into that situation of trying, what can we do to hurt Agartha the most? And what we can do to hurt Agartha the most, aside from, bloodying them while they try to take our cap, and then giving our lands over to Yis and encouraging that type of situation, is to coordinate with Ulm and be like, hey, Ulm, I'm on my last legs, I'm gonna die, right? But as I die, I'm going to try to do as much damage as I can to Agartha. So, you should probably be ready, because if I'm successful, I'll still die, but I will do a lot of damage to their army, hopefully, right? And the majority of what he's got up here is probably the majority of what he's got, meaning that you should be able to face off against him relatively well. Now, I think Ulm versus Agartha is a pretty good matchup regardless. The Magma Children can be pretty favorable in that matchup to the Agarthan side of things, but generally speaking, I think Ulm has enough oomph to get the job done. And Ulm has been receptive to this, so I think it's very, very likely, right? Like, Ulm is going to be attacking, I say very, very likely, by turn 23, yes, Ulm is definitely going to be attacking Agartha. Is this going to save me? Probably not in any way, shape, form, or fashion, right? That's not what we're trying to do, though. Again, we're trying to bloody the noses of the people that caused this to me. And in fairness, Agartha didn't really cause this. Ashdod did. But, you know, we're doing what we can. Agartha came at me afterwards, right? So it's the scenario of, like, I'm biting the hand that I can at the moment, right? So we've got that situation going on. Adjacent to all of that negotiation and everything like that is trade. So trade, you're going to see a bunch of stuff pop up here because we've been trading for a bunch of things. We covered some of this in the previous turns with gems that we have sent to Arco, gems that we have sent to Ulm. I think most, if not all, of this trade is coming from Arco and Ulm. Unfortunately, I do not have the amount of gems that I'm sending to them. Though I can say most of what we've sent was already sent in the previous turns, right? So there's not a lot more that we send over the course of the next couple turns for any of these trades. And what we get in return are 4 owl quills, 1 dragon helmet, 1 main gouge of parrying, 1 black shield, 1 black steel shield, 1 black steel full plate, 1 boots of giant strength, and 3 rings of fire. So, and what are we trying to accomplish with that? Well, really, what we're trying to accomplish with the 4 owl quills is boosting our research as quickly as possible, right? We're going to have Alteration 3 by the end of this next turn, but getting to Alt 4 is going to take 3 turns after that. There's no way that we're going to get enough boosters from people. If we got boosters last turn, it might have mattered. And if we got, I think we needed 6 boosters last turn to be able to finish Alteration 4 in 3 turns total rather than 4 turns total. Regardless, though, we have enough siege strength to survive long enough against Agartha for it to not necessarily matter, right? We're going to hit Alt 4 regardless. So the research speed is just icing on the cake. It's just getting us to other things potentially faster, depending on how long we survive, right? But really, what we get out of Alteration is that Iron Skin, Moss Body, Temper Flesh, a Body Ethereal combo, right? And what we're doing with all the rest of the gear is trying to go for that concept. The idea of creating a thug that can withstand Agartha's entire military force and cause it to die/rout. So let's talk about this. How the fuck is that possible? And how are we going to try to accomplish it? Well, if we take a look at the forces that we see arrayed before us, right? Agartha has a lot of units, but not many of these units hit especially hard. These crossbowmen are somewhat dangerous because they have armor piercing, right? And then obviously the Magma Children are dangerous because they have armor piercing and they do fire damage, right? Magical fire damage. They also have a fire shield. right? So that is all a concern. And then if you look down here, we can see they have Pale One soldiers and more heavy infantries and magma children. And then they have even more magma children and heavy infantries coming in behind. We also know that they have things like Strength of Giants. So if they get a couple of Strength of Giants casts off, we're looking at magma children, right? That could hit for 16 fire damage, or we're looking at heavy infantries that could be hitting for 19 potentially mixed, partially piercing damage, right? So, all in all, that is honestly not especially scary. The thing that's going on with Agartha's military force is it's a sizable military force with mixed damage threats. Not high damage threats, but mixed damage threats. But we can deal with mixed damage threats. Because Iron Skin, Temper Flesh, and Moss Body, right? Combined with things like a Black Steel Full Plate, and a shield, and a helmet, are going to make it to where we can get upwards of 30 armor, or 30 protection, right? Take half damage from everything, so cut things down to half of what they would normally do. And then Moss Body on top of it means we just negate damage unless the damage is over a certain amount. Basically meaning that something that's going to hit us from a physical standpoint, right? Would have to hit us for like 60-ish damage to have a chance of actually popping our Moss Body, and then we take chip damage as we go from there, right? Is kind of the generalized game plan. That's very hard to beat with just basic physical units. How do you beat that? Well, you beat it by having, giants that hit really, really hard and can DRN their way up to that threshold, and because all they just got to hit it once, and then they pop your Moss Body, and then you're taking chip damage after that, right? So that's definitely doable from something like giants. Or you have to have mixed damage, right? Like if it's fire damage, you don't care about your protection you do care about your protection as much, but if it's piercing, right, or if it's armor negating, right, then you don't care about your stuff as much. So a magma child, for example, does not have to roll as high as a heavy infantry in order to pop my my stuff, my Moss Body, basically. But we can deal with that by pumping our resistance via things like Rings of Fire and a Dragon Helmet. So if we get high enough fire resistance, it's unlikely that a magma child is ever going to harm us. And that's where things start to get really interesting. Because, okay, fine, whatever. We can potentially make an unkillable thug by Agarthan standards. So what? That doesn't mean we can beat an army. Sure, if they're attacking us, we turn timer them. But if we're turn timering them, it's very likely that a lot of our stuff is going to rout, and they might not kill one thing, but they'll kill other things, right? Like, they might not kill the unkillable thug, but they'll kill all the rest of our troops. So that means we have to attack them, right? Because we don't want the rest of our troops to die, so we need to be attacking them. Meaning that we're going to be the attacker, meaning that we'll be the one to rout first, right? So that's not great. Accepting it's Agartha, and it's a very unique situation. And this is where we kind of start gambling. Because if this Agarthan player is suspecting something like this, then what they can do is they can sit on my capital, which they've been doing for several turns, right? Remember, this is turn 18 through 22. They've been sitting on my capital for several turns now. What they could do is break my walls, and then just go in with either their regular infantry or their magma children. Because if they go at me, or rather I go at them, and they have the mixed forces, right? Their magma children, if they are unable to kill a single entity, what's going to happen is all of their forces are going to pool around that single entity. All of their foot soldiers, all of their magma children are going to circle around that singular entity, and they're going to burn to death because of the magma children's heat aura. Okay? So if the Agarthan player is expecting me to try to fuck with them, which they should, right? They should definitely expect me to try to do something. If they expect this, then what they could and should do is they can move their magma children on to help pop the fort, and then move them off, right? Just have them waiting in the wings. But that's a gamble, right? Except on turn 22, two things happened. The first thing is that Ulm attacked Agartha. The second thing is that Agartha moved off of my capital. And that's a big deal. So now we are in this gamble mode. Because it's entirely possible that Agartha is just trying to fake me out, right? If I were them, I would not have wanted, or I would not want to have gone through the effort of moving my troops around, popping a capital, and then just walk away from it, right? Absolutely, I would not want to do that. But if I moved my forces off, or if Agartha moved their forces off of the capital, what they could be doing is hoping that I send little raiding parties out, right? That I move to try to take back some of my lands, because then they can try to defeat me in detail. So I'm actually going to be doing that, right? Like I am totally going to do that. We are going to attack several provinces on turn 23 in an effort to try to raid some of our land back from Agartha. But we're also proceeding with the plan that we had been making, right? Rather than sending everything out, I am going to assume that this is a feint, and that Agartha is just trying to get me to send all of my forces out. But what I don't think Agartha knows, or I'm hoping Agartha does not realize this, but I have no intention of fighting Agartha with my whole army anyways. I have, since turn 17, when I found out I was going to be fighting Agartha for my capital, I did not want to fight Agartha with my whole army. I wanted to fight Agartha with one or two individual units. So let's talk about the actual kind of like real in-depth scenario of what we are planning to do. It's actually really pretty simple. I say pretty simple. We had a couple options because we have this werewolf, because it has pretty high HP and it has built-in regeneration, and it has full slots and everything like that. But it can't. What we have access to right now, we can't get its protection high enough. But we can get my Frostfather's protection high enough. So my Frostfather already has high resistances because of our Bless. And he has access to cast anything and everything that we might need, right? So we are going to be kitting out our Frostfather with all of that gear, right? The dragon helmet, main gauche, black steel shield, black steel plate, boots of the giant, strength, which is kind of just whatever, but it's just something that we could grab. A bracer of defense, and rings of a ring of fire, right? We're gonna have upwards of, what is that, like 40 plus fire resistance, right? There's no way that their magma children are gonna do anything to us. We are going to have upwards of 30 plus protection with temper flesh and moss body. Very, 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 very unlikely that any of his units, even with strength of giants, are going to be able to do anything to us. Maybe the crossbows if they get lucky, right? But unlikely. So we are going to be putting up a number of spells on ourselves. Very specifically, with our Frostfather, we are going to have to do Iron Skin, because that's the only way we can get that. We're going to do Moss Body, because that's the only way we can get that. And we're going to be doing Temper Flesh, right? But from there, we have a little bit of wiggle room, because we have some other things that we can potentially do. And I'm not sure what exactly we do want to be doing with them. In enchantment, for example, we have personal regeneration, which would be really nice to put on because of the chip damage, right? And then we also have things like Astral Shield, which could help us defend ourselves. And then if we send someone like our Royal Malqui out, we can do other things like Body Ethereal and things like that, right? So the idea is that we're just going to stack as many defensive buffs as possible to make our Frostfather as unkillable as possible, and then let two things happen. One, he has a massive chill aura, chill 13, so he will fatigue most things out very, very quickly as they get around him, which is, again, going to make him much more likely to be able to just take no damage. And then, with that combination of Safety Net and the heat aura of the Magma Children, the hope is that we will kill a large swath of the army as it burns itself and then flees. But we have no idea if he's actually going to, if this is a fake or not, right? If this is a feint. If he's going to come back at our capital, or if, because this is a big army, right? Like, when all is said and done, this army is close to like 300 units that he comes and sits on our capital. And Ulm attacking him is, obviously, I've been trying to get this to happen. I've been negotiating for that to happen, right? I've been encouraging Ulm to do this, and I think it does make sense for Ulm. It's not just me, pulling them in. But, the timing of it has made it to where I don't know if Agartha is like, yeah, it's not worth it for me to worry and focus on taking Nazca's capital. I need to make sure I can win this war against Ulm. So maybe he's pulling back this entire army, and everything we've done is for naught, and we're not gonna do anything. And we really only have one shot at this, right? Because if we do this, right, if we throw our Frostfather out there, and he sees what we do, he's not going to come anywhere near us until he has things that can deal with it. And in point of fact, here's the other thing. We might, well, I say this, he might be putting out things that, he might already be coming up with counters to this, and we just might not have seen them. I don't think that is the case, because here's another thing that I've been doing for the last several turns. I have so many of these Karakas, I've just been throwing them out to ping his army and see kind of like what's up, right? So I don't think we have counters like Great Swords of Sharpness or things like that are mixed in. I don't think we're going to have to worry about that. It's all going to come down to the gamble of, is this attack from Agartha a feint? Or is it actually them retreating to defend themselves? Because if it is them retreating to defend themselves, that sucks. Because we're gonna be able to take a couple of provinces back here or there, whatever. But our research is trashed. Basically, the whole point of our existence is deal a lot of damage to an army and then let another player come in and eat that player because of the damage that we did. Like, our whole existence right now is can we hurt Agartha enough to make things easy for Ulm? Not to live, not to survive, definitely not to win, but to make things easy for Ulm. And if Agartha retreats, that's bad news bears for me, because I'm still dead. It just then means that Ashdod or Van gets to come kill me, and what I'm doing is unlikely to work against them. I could potentially get it to work against Van, but I don't think so. Because Van's already prepared for things like this, right? Van is already geared up with things like Great Swords of Sharpness and stuff like that, right? So I would not expect that to work. Okay. That is the last little bit to kind of like discuss. So I'm very sorry that I lost turns 18 through 22. I tried to recover them and it just did not work out. Fortunately, I don't think we missed anything incredibly exciting or important. But turn 23 is either going to be really, really cool, or it's going to be a big stinker. I'm not sure which, but I'm really excited to find out. So, thanks for watching. We'll see you next time. Bye-bye, everybody. Hey, everybody. Thanks for watching. If you enjoyed the video, consider leaving a like, commenting, or subscribing. It really helps me out. If you'd like to see me live, head over to my Twitch at twitch.tv/thedistanthorizon.